Hi, I'm Mac McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups. And today we're going to talk about toxic, narcissistic family members that cause you problems, that cause your partner problems, how to deal with them, how to get into it. It's one of those things that comes up a lot, and it really affects your relationships, and it can lead to breakups. And there's a lot of videos on narcissism. There's a lot of videos on toxicity. I've talked about it before. The reason I was sparked to do this in the live stream today, I actually had a different topic on deck, but I had a email from a client that I've worked with, and I've actually worked with her and her boyfriend together, and she's got some family members that could be qualified as toxic, and she's navigating through this I believe she's in her 40s right now. She's dealt with them her whole life. And we actually did a group of sessions, not just about relationships, but talking about some of these issues and how to deal with her sister, and she's got a stepdad. And one of the things that I can tell you right now, when I was younger, in my 20s, I had none of these tools. The internet didn't have all these videos. One of the things about the internet having so many videos on toxic people, narcissism, and things like that, I will say that I feel like there's narcissistic people that are basically looking for other narcissists. This person's a narcissist, this person's toxic, and you're looking for it. But when you've been in a family for a while and you've been dealing with someone and you didn't know till recently how bad it is or how much they've influenced you in a negative way. And one thing, to simplify things when you deal with people that are toxic or narcissistic, how do you feel after your interactions? Now, this could be, you taking something the wrong way, right? But are you, leaving interactions with a family member where you feel bad about yourself all the time, or they say something that really hangs on you, or they're pointing you in a direction to be more dependent on them? The list goes on. So what happened today was this email that I got. I know her situation because we've done hours and hours of coaching and gotten deep into some of the family things. And this is one of those things when you're in a breakup or you have trouble in your relationship, it's a great opportunity to unpack some of the roots and seeds of what your problems really are. And a lot of times they don't deal directly with the relationship that you're in, okay? What's hard about family members is you grew up with them. Sisters, brothers, uncles, parents, cousins, right? And someone's like, oh, cousins aren't that close. Well, some people have a close cousin that's like a brother. And growing up, both of you have evolved, okay? So both of you have evolved and become a different person from when you were 5, 6, 7 years old, when you were playmates, when you had fun, when you looked up to someone. And so when you're 5 years old, and let's say you have an older brother that's 10, well, that older brother's probably going to have a big influence on you because the gap of smarts as a kid from 10 to 5 is pretty big, right? And so that kid that's 5 years old, chances are he's going to look up to his 10-year-old brother, glorify him, and do and act what he does, right? But then when you become a teenager, things level out, right? Then when you become an adult, depending on your job, your university life, all these other things, it changes. So what do I mean? So this is what's interesting about family. You have these things, let's just say 0 to 7, 0 to 8, and you have these interactions with your brother, sister, mother, and father, or who your caregivers are, or maybe your grandparents live with you, okay? And whatever the relationship is early on, it may change in your teen years. It may change in your 20s or your 30s because people are going to change with their experiences changing. So I had a situation years back. I haven't shared this in a long time, but I was thinking about it recently, ironically, when this client of mine sent me this email today, and I'm going to get into that in a moment. But very close, like a brother to me. cousin of mine, and we were really close when we were young, and he's about 5-6 years older than me. And I always looked up to him, was close. And then during the teen years, he lived kind of far away, and we had a 5-year age gap. So when I was like 13, he was 18 or 19. He had a kid really young. So his life changed pretty quick. And so we just didn't contact each other very much, but we're cousins, we're blood. And then in my 20s, we reconnected, did barbecues, hung out, different things like that. And it was good. And even stayed in contact when I moved to Thailand. But due to some circumstances in his life, he just became really negative about a lot of different things. And I was going in a different direction of being more positive. Now, positive, negative, it's kind of a general thing, right? I can get specific. But I constantly came away from our interactions in my 30s like, God, it's really negative, or everything I bring up is not cool, or everything I bring up, I got to get redirected as that's stupid. Or one of the things would be he liked to drink a lot, right? And he could handle his drinks. I like to drink, but I don't like to drink till like 3 a.m. And I should say I liked to drink. I don't really drink anymore very often. And I like to hang out with someone that's a family member or something like that, and, grind and talk and get into some things. But I found like we were drinking, and it was like I was getting attacked verbally about, everything was redirected how stupid I was, or like you should do this or you should do that. But here's the thing. As an individual, where he was at wasn't a very good place to be giving advice. And this is a big thing. Even if it's your family member, what's their body of work? Right? Like they're sitting on a pedestal, they're sitting on their soapbox, because let's just rewind. When you were 5 and they were 10, or when you were 7 and they were 13 and they were able to tell you what to do or how things are, you listened, right? And now here you are 20s or 30s, and they're still trying to be on their soapbox and talk down to you, but you go, I think I'm kind of better off than you. I think I know better now. I have had some different life experiences, and you're pushing it into a negative place, but you're still trying to be the big brother or tell me what to do. And you got to take inventory in a moment. You got to go, wait a minute. I don't need to take this anymore. I don't need their morals or values imposed upon me. And do I really agree with them? Do I really agree with them? Or am I just taking this because it's a family member? And this is where it's hard, because it's a family member. You have years of history. You've got unconditional love built in. This is your fucking family, man, right? But then you have these interactions, and you're like, wow, they just went in this other direction. There's a lot of negative shit going on in their life, toxic stuff, and you interact with them, you hang out, and it's like they just want to get drunk, and they want to complain, and then they want to bring it on to you. So you have something positive to talk about, they bring it down. Or they start talking about how great they are, or how special they are, right? And so this happens in families, but it's your cousin, but it's your older brother or your sister, right? And so you got this unconditional love. So you stand by them, you stay with them. But here's the thing. You got to get to a point where you're like, these interactions, I don't agree with them. I don't just have to listen to them because it's my older brother or it's my older cousin. And you got to take some inventory. And sometimes, just like in breakups, you got to let go of some people, because you're not going to reason with them. And they still look at you like, oh, you're my little sister, or you're my little brother. So they talk down to you. But like I said, when you get in your late 20s, early 30s, hopefully, life experience, maturity starts to even out. If you're 32 and I'm 27 and you're still talking to me like, I'm a little kid, and they don't have a body of work that you respect, or you think, wow, man, you're doing it, you're doing really well. They're actually not doing very well, but they're giving you advice all the time. Take a step back for a moment. Do some journaling. Think about it. Talk to a coach or a therapist like myself, right? Air it out. Talk about it. Go like, this is the interaction I just had with my older brother, and I'm not feeling good about it. They're always trying to impose things on me. Get another perspective. It's hard to do. So what happened in this situation with this client of mine. Basically, she's got a stepfather that is very controlling, demanding, and always wants to tell her what to do and how to do it. And on top of it, imposes her to be more dependent. Now, the stepfather has this relationship with the mom already, right? And he has it on the stepdaughter. Now, the stepdaughter she's in her 40s. She's got a great boyfriend. They've got a good relationship. They're doing work on that relationship. This is who I've been working with, them as a couple. So she had to let go of the stepdad. She was staying at the parents' house. And someone said, well, even in your 40s, yeah, a lot of people live at their parents' house for financial reasons and a variety of reasons there. So she's living with her boyfriend. Now, basically, because she moved out of the house, the stepdad has kind of like cut her off, which might be a good thing. What's happened, though, her sister, who has always been distant with her since she was young, and a little bit distant in the sense, and always talked kind of down to her since she was young, telling her how to do things, what to do, what she's wrong, what she's right. Well, she was the baby in the family, and her sister was the older sister that got less attention. That was identified. And people carry out these narratives as they get older. They're still bitter about the fact that, you got a teddy bear, you got, Rainbow Bright and Teddy Ropskin when you were young for Christmas, and I didn't get shit. I'm not saying that's a narrative, but they carry these narratives in their head. You got treated so much better. Mom loved you more. And then when you get older and there's something that's going on in the family, they take it out on you. And they still think, oh, I'm the older sister. I'm going to tell you how it is. So recently, she sent me this email that's basically like, a dear so-and-so, let's just say dear Kim, she's taking it upon herself to tell her sister, and tell me if I'm confusing a little bit here. She's taking it upon herself to tell her sister, you're doing this to mom, you're doing this to our stepdad, you're doing this to my kid. Like, she's speaking for everyone else in the family's feelings against her. Number one, I don't think that's accurate. You don't want to get secondhand information. Well, mom thinks this about you, so-and-so thinks this about you. So they asked you to speak for them, right? They asked you to speak for them. So she writes this email basically saying, Dear Kim, you're alienating your family, especially mom. Number one, according to who? You? So you're on the outside. By the way, this sister lives in a different state than the mom. So you have not only broken her heart, but you've not asked her about what is going on in her own life. So, huge words right here. Let's just break this down really quick. Your older sister contacts you, who you've never had a great relationship. You feel like it's always kind of put you down and been a little bit of jealous of you and your mom's relationship. And you're distant because you're in your 40s and she's doing her thing in a different state and you're doing your thing. And by the way, this sister doesn't have a great track record of who she is and what she's done in life, okay? She's not, an impressive individual on paper, okay? But she's going to, how about the start? You are alienating your family, especially mom. You have not only broken her heart, you've not asked her about what is going on in her life, her own life. Mom hasn't told her this directly, but I'm going to speak for mom. Okay. She's not doing great. It would be a shame for you to essentially divorce everyone in your immediate family and to realize the consequences of that emotionally and mentally down the line, especially when they pass. So now she's creating an extreme situation as an example. Very Donald Trump-like here. The most extreme situation, right? You're going to divorce everyone in your immediate family. Number one, who's everyone? Are you speaking for you, or did you talk to everyone in the family and say, hey, I'm going to send this email in the name of you guys, and I'm going to explain to Kim that she's divorcing the families and that she needs to realize the consequences of that emotionally and mentally. This is so fucking heavy, right? Who are you to speak for everyone in the family? You send an email, what is your feelings towards me? Right? Did mom ask you to send this email? If I contacted mom and said, hey, just got this email, mom, do you feel like I'm divorcing you from my life? Do you feel like emotionally and mentally down the line, I'm going to regret this? Do you feel this way, mom? These are heavy words, right? This is an opinion. It's jaded and it's biased, right? She's trying to, and it's extreme. There's always a consequence of someone in your family passing, which is big, right? So she's going for the harshest thing to think about, right? Let's continue on. Maybe you cannot understand that right now. Now she's talking down to her. Now she's saying, maybe you can't understand that right now. As if I'm going to tell you what you're not doing correct. This is someone that's in their 40s as an adult. Maybe you never will. Now, that's just a negative, extreme statement. Maybe you never will. There's nothing positive. There's nothing good. There's nothing neutral about that. It's a shot at the kneecaps. For your own mental sake, for your own emotional sake, and for hers. Highly dramatic, worst case scenario. For your own mental sake. Sorry, I didn't know you were a doctor, sis. And for hers. So now she's saying, I know what's best for your mental sake, and I know what's best for your emotional sake, and I know what's best for moms too. Really? Didn't know you were in Harvard Med School. I am asking that you keep in touch with mom. So now what you're doing is, hey mom, I went and talked to Kim, and I told her that, you know, I'm now she's playing hero. Now I know this client. I know this client's been in contact with her mom. Yeah, things aren't great because she doesn't talk to her stepdad, but her mom and her are on speaking terms. So I know the other side of this. So the sister goes on. Again, I'm asking that you keep in touch with mom. You would be and will be devastated to lose her. Extreme example, right? Especially if you choose to leave things like this as they are. How's this? How are they in your eyes? So tell me my relationship with mom, or Kim's relationship with mom. You know all the ins and outs of that? And you know what's best? Maybe I should just have a conversation with mom. But this person's trying to extremely guilt net her sister. She writes on, step outside of yourself. Yeah, we all know you are living your life and doing what you want. Oh, wow, sorry. Yeah, can you just feel the sarcasm in that? Now, let's just dissect that statement. We all know you are living your life and doing what you want. Oh, wow, someone in their 40s living their life and doing what they want, and their sister's being sarcastic and guilt netting them? Who's the one with a problem? You've made the statement loud and clear. So I would say, why don't you take a step outside yourself and reread what you just wrote to your sister? As if it's negative to be living your life and doing what you want in your 40s. This woman's not a drug addict. This woman's not a bad person. I've talked to her. I'm biased. It's my client. But living her life and doing what she wants is a negative thing? Now, here's where it gets personal. Here's where it gets personal, and here's where this sister doesn't realize it, but she just showed her cards. You're not the center of the world. This is getting really old. Now, where's that coming from? She's older. The sister that she's talking to, that she's writing to, is younger, got more attention. She had a medical problem when she was young, so the mom gave her a lot of attention when she was young. We've established that. So now She throws in at the end, you're not the center of the world. She's living on her own. She's living with her boyfriend. She's not bothering mom or the stepdad or her for anything. Where is she acting like she's the center of the world? She's actually away from the family. She's not contacting him. This is a shot at the kneecaps, highly toxic. It doesn't even involve this is a personal thing she's carried since she was young, the older sister. Right? Okay? So, next part. This is getting real old. For who? You? Again, your relationship with, and I'll just say his name's John, with me, with Jackie, maybe beyond repair. I think Jackie's her daughter, but mom as well, your mom. So she's on holy ground, like your relationship with the rest of us is, beyond repair. So you're sending an email telling me my relationship with you is beyond repair, but that being said, I think you should still be better to our mom. What does this even fucking mean? So you're holding a torch as if you're this great person, this great character, going out of the way for mom. Really what you're doing is you're trying to put yourself as a better daughter. Why would someone take advice from someone that's saying our relationship is beyond repair, but I want to tell you what you should be doing? Okay. Great approach, sis. I was understanding for a while. So now she's making it about her. I was understanding for a while. Now I'm way beyond that. I'm incredibly angry that you would treat her this way. Lack of contact and respect, a genuine lack of caring and love. According to you? So, if I called up mom, would mom say that I gave her a lack of contact, respect, and genuine lack of caring love? Or is that just your interpretation of the situation stacked with I'm the center of the world? At least letting her know, no matter what your issues are with our stepdad. So, and that's how the email ended. Horrible communication by the sister. And the sister's making herself out to be some hero in the name of the mom, with really a hidden agenda of, I want you to feel bad about yourself, and I want you to I want to feel like I'm better to the family than you are. This is toxicity number 101, right? So what do you do with this? What do you do with this? You get an email like this from a family member. What do you do with it? What's the answer? How do you treat this? I got a really good way to do it. Okay. I'm going to share something on the screen real quick. And it's got a kind of a bad name. I've talked about it before. Nonviolent communication. Let's see here. So, if I can get it a little bit bigger, that'd probably be better, huh? So, basically, this... Can't get it too much bigger, huh? All right, let's just break this down. Observations, okay? So, this is a very clean and good way to communicate with anyone close to you. Relationship, breakups, I'll talk about this again and again. It's a nice template. It's a nice way to go. And even if you're the sister probably wouldn't respond to communication this way. But if you wrote it out to yourself this way, it would calm you down. So, number 1, observation. What I observe. Put your feelings aside, what you observe. My sister has sent me an email speaking for my mom, telling me that my mom is hurt by me not contacting my mom enough. Okay? My sister has said some mean personal things, like I'm the center of the world, that we have a relationship that's beyond repair, and she's telling me that I'm going to regret treating my mom like this. So extremely negative toned email, speaking for her mom. All right, that's what we observe happened. Feelings aside. What are your feelings? Now, this is an example because I don't know exactly what the feelings are from Kim who received this email. But an example would be, my feelings are, I'm hurt that she would say this, and who is she to speak for mom? I feel like betrayed and hurt. Okay? Needs. I need you to stop speaking for mom and just speak for yourself. If you're gonna want to speak for mom, let's get a 3-way call involved, or you want to CC mom in your email and have her stamp what you said she feels. It's a huge red flag when someone goes, oh, I know what someone else feels. Secondhand information on feelings? Give me a break. Right? So, getting back to this, you go into the feelings. Okay? The needs. I need you to stop emailing me negativity and shots fired. Like, in other words, if you're going to email me and you're going to say, hey, you haven't talked, like, how about this approach? Hey, you know what? I talked to mom yesterday and it sounds like she really misses you. And I think she's really hurt by the fact that you don't talk to her as much as you used to. You might want to give her a call. I'm not sure exactly, everything about it, but I think you should probably give her a call and touch base. Even if you have problems with me or you have problems with our stepdad, give mom a call. I just talked to her and it just seems like she really misses you. Okay. Instead of, you're the center of the world, you're going to emotionally regret this. What is all this? Right? Request. So your final part of the nonviolent communication to your sister would be, hey, in the future when you email me, don't speak for mom's feelings. Just make sure you're being direct about your own feelings. And if you're going to send me something where you're declaring that our relationship is beyond repair, that I'm the center of the world, taking shots at me, just don't send the email. Okay? Now, if you want to have a family chat or you want to talk to me on the phone directly, we can do that. But if you're going to say that I'm the center of the world or I just don't care and speak about what I'm doing as if you know what I'm feeling and what it's been to be me in my life, then I don't want to talk to you. That's a request. And this is how this works, this nonviolent communication. Observations, feelings, needs, requests. Okay? It works really clean, actually. It works really nice. All right, let's get into, I did have a video on deck to kind of take a look at this. I'm going to get into the comments really quick. Rob IS, how you doing? Yeah, I understand that of people who is really narcissistic. I'm sure we met people like that in our life once. Absolutely, Laffy Quince. Some people always look to bring dynamics to a negative level since they live in that paradigm. They enjoy bringing it on to others. Absolutely. You got to consider the source. So if someone takes shots at you, they say negative things. Is that the space they're living in all the time? You see how I just gave an example of how she could have communicated, hey, mom really misses you. And it doesn't even have to be nice. It could just be more neutral. Hey, call mom. I just talked to her. I think you should talk to her. She really misses you. Instead of saying, you think you're the center of the world. Extremely extreme. Some people love complaining since their misery is their comfort zone. Absolutely. He acts that way to make himself feel better about himself by treating you like that. Observations, feeling, needs, requests. It's a good one. Now, what I would tell this woman, this client of mine, maybe you go, oh, that would never work with my sister. Okay, but then journal it out for yourself. Right? If you went to your sister and were like, I want to do this nonviolent communication, your sister's like, you're stupid. That's crazy. I don't do that kind of stuff. What, did you get it off the internet? Fine. When you're journaling to yourself, write that out and go like, oh, what did I observe? What am I feeling? What do I need? What's my request? It's just a great way to go and be really honest, because the observation part's really key. What actually happened here? You sent me an email saying that, speaking for mom's feelings, saying that, I'm going to regret all this, extreme cases. What's my feelings? Then get into it. Petty Betty, Pleasure to see you. The sister is a hater. I would tell Kim to print out the email and have a family meeting. Well, that's a good point, because that's the thing about emails. There's evidence. It's like, hey, Mom, this was written to me. I just want to know, is this how you really feel, Mom, or am I missing something here because I know I want to hurt you? What's up, Eve? I have one we kind of like on-off relationship. It was super toxic, and she also tried to involve my mother as well. Terrible experiences. And the thing is, if you get into this nonviolent communication form, right, and you're like, this person won't even understand, still write it out for you. My approach was to withdraw and distance. I think that's actually a good approach with a toxic person. It's difficult when it's a family member, when it's your sister, when it's your cousin, because there's so much built into that. That being said, in this specific case, don't be speaking for other people's feelings that are close to me, like my mom, right? All right, let's take a look at, there's a couple of videos I have here on deck. How to deal with toxic people, Tony Robbins. I didn't watch this video. I was kind of curious about it, though, so I'm going to share it with you and watch it at the same time. Let's take a look. First, I got to take this one down. There you go. All right. Mr. Tony Robbins, the legend continues, huh? Did you guys know that Tony Robbins isn't his real name, that he chose like a Hollywood name? Surprise, surprise.
My family that's toxic? What about my partner who's toxic? And how do I love someone unconditionally when they don't respect me? I can't trust them. What about situations like
all those reactions are natural human reactions from ego, because it's all about you, me, what I'm not doing, and that's why you're in pain. And so I'm not telling you like I haven't done this shit. I've done it too in the past, but it's an old pattern I don't really do anymore, and it used to affect me. Now, not a dominant one, I wouldn't have become who I become. Early in my life, I developed this belief that life is calling not to give me something. Life is calling for me to deliver things, for me to bring something to life. And I felt the joy that came from not getting but giving. And I got hooked on that core pattern, and then the pattern of learning so I'd have something to give, which I know one of the things that I respect about you, Lewis, is that you have that same pattern in you. You're always trying to learn more, because underneath it all, you also want to give it. You want it for
Absolutely.
you, but you want to share it, right? And so those patterns help me not be in what they're not giving. And all this language, today people don't understand the power of their language, like toxic. What the hell are you talking about? You've been reading too much social media and thinking about yourself, or somebody raised you to constantly judge everybody else. We live in a culture now where people, you're evil or you're like me. That's basically how it is, right? The whole world, everybody else is immoral unless they do what you do, think what you think, experience you think. I mean, being a liberal, I was a liberal, right? Being a liberal growing up meant I would fight for your ability to say and believe whatever you want different than me. Today, now, everybody wants everybody to think the same thing. Otherwise, they're evil.
Stop labeling people. Stop being I know who this person's toxic. This person's narcissistic. Take a look in the mirror. Deal with yourself first, right? It's just overdone. Like, this person's I put it in the thumbnail and stuff like that because this is what gets people to click, because it's a big word, right? It's toxic. I agree 100% with what Tony Robbins is saying here, and basically saying that watch your language. Stop labeling people this, okay? Deal with the problem, like I just said. Unpack the problem. Like this email we went right through. I didn't go into like, oh, this sister's so toxic. This sister's so toxic. I went and broke down the problem in the email. I broke it down. This is what I do in live coaching sessions. Let's break down the individual problems, okay? Let's have better communication. Let's not label people. It's an extremely lazy way to communicate. Let's get back into it.
Evil, or otherwise they could hurt me. Whatever happened to sticks and stones will break your bones and words will never hurt me. We have this whole thing that words are evil. Words are action. It's bullshit. And all it does is make you incredibly weak as a human being. And you're more than that. We all are more than that. But you know what? Like a kid that's never broken their bones, deathly afraid of breaking the bone. But if you're a kid and you're rough and tumble, you broke multiple bones and they healed, you don't have any fear of it. There's so many kids that have been raised to be safe and secure every moment. Anything that's insecure or unsafe, they don't want to be a part of, including language. And what it does is make you incredibly weak and fearful. And that's why there's so many people that are abundant that are angry all the time. Because they're angry because they're not growing. So don't get me wrong. I know some people are not a good influence. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying you're more than somebody's influence unless you obsess about it every moment and make them wrong so you can make yourself feel superior morally, psychologically, or spiritually. That's bullshit. Stop the pattern. We've all done it. Catch yourself. Because if you want joy, happiness, and freedom and an extraordinary life, it will not come from blame. Never. There's no pride that comes from blame. I don't mean fake pride where you make shit up to feel good. I'm talking about real pride. Pride is something you earn. Like people tell me, oh, I have no self-esteem because my parents used to say this or they'd say that. I'd say that's such bullshit. I'm not saying it's bullshit they didn't say that. I said it's bullshit, that's why you don't have self-esteem. Self-esteem does not come from what people say about you. Self-esteem comes from what you experience about yourself. See, someone can tell you your whole life you're a piece of crap, and a part of you can go, you're full of it, I'm gonna show you. Lots of people have done that. They never bought it. Or someone tell you you're beautiful your whole life. You go, I'm not really beautiful. So what people tell you doesn't matter at all. It's what you stack. It's what you assemble. It's what you create. It's the habit of what you put in your head. And today I don't blame you because we got a whole culture that's always blaming somebody else for something in their life. But blame is not a strategy for pride. That's why you're listening to blaming people. They're all angry all the time. Listen, if I wanted to blame, I grew up in an environment, I didn't even share it till my mom passed, and even then I didn't share. I grew up in a pretty rough environment. My mom was a beautiful soul, but when she drank alcohol and she mixed it with prescription drugs, it was a different creature, and it was a violent creature. And I have a younger brother 5 years younger and a younger sister 7 years younger. And my mom would get nuts, and I didn't want them to get hurt. So I was 5'1" in high school. She'd grab me by the hair and smash me against the wall till I bled. Now, I never shared this, and I'm not denigrating her in any way. I only shared it like 4 or 5 years after she died because I was talking to a group of kids in New York City, all without fathers, 80% African-American, about 20% Hispanic out of their group roughly, no white kids, and I'm talking about your biography is not your destiny. And it doesn't matter what you've been through. What you decide now is what's going to control your life. What you decide each day going forward is going to decide your life. And I look at them seeing me, and I can read their minds. This big, tall, white, rich guy is going to tell me biography doesn't matter. So I said, let me tell you my story. And I told them the whole story, way more than I'm telling you. And every one of them was crying their eyes out when they're done. I said, look where I am right now. Because I wouldn't assemble the story that my past equals my future. The past only equals your future if you live there. If you're using a rear view mirror to guide yourself, you're gonna crash. So what you've been through is horrific. What you've been through is unjust. I'm on your side. But if you hang on to it, you have no future and you have no one to blame but yourself. And these kids, to their credit, man, they just responded to the challenge because they first cried their eyes out hearing all the stories. My mom would think I was lying, and I wasn't lying. She poured liquid soap down my throat till I threw up, and I wasn't lying. So it's not the physical abuse, it's the fact that this is the person you love most that's trying to hurt you that messes with your head. So I could have been messed up for life, but I didn't. Because something inside me says, I'm responsible for this life. And part of that is because I started reading when I was 13, 14 biographies of people, the greatest people in history, and reading their lives and finding.
I like Tony Robbins, but he does repeat a lot of the same stories. I've heard that story in many of his interviews. I believe that his mom was an alcoholic. He had some issues when he was a kid. It's anecdotal information that helps make his point, right? So he's saying, stop blaming your past, which easier said than done than some people, right? Like some people just move on from their past. Some people carry it. Some people blame. Looking back at this email, getting back on the topic of this original topic for the live stream, you get a bad email or a bad message or a bad text from your sister, your cousin, your brother, your uncle, whoever, and they get into some of these things where, like it was mentioned, you're not the center of the world. You're going to regret what you've done. Just realize, where is that coming from? They're obviously somewhere in the past, because at the present moment right now, one of the things that stood out about that email that I shared with you that's just amazing, if you just break down the email, right, instead of me just going, oh, your sister's toxic, your sister's a narcissist. We're breaking down the email. We all know you're living the life and doing what you want. You've made that statement loud and clear. It's like, okay, now this is something that I would suggest. When someone gives you something like that, okay? When someone gives you something like that, there's a way to go with that and go, yep, I am living the life I want to live right now, and I don't feel guilty about it. Right? You can go with that. Truth of Life, welcome. He says, I have a bias on this, Mac. Shoot, no problem. There is a difference between a culture of deflection and narcissistic abuse. What Tony is saying here could really have a negative impact on people who are in a dark place. Depends on the person. I'm writing right now. Absolutely, all messages are received differently. I would say that you're right. I would say that you're right, bud. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'd say that, yeah. I always spell the word received wrong. Not everyone agrees with any message. There's some. Let me put it to you like this: Truth of Life, Clutch. There's tons of content out there on the breakup community, right? And the breakup coaches. I've been looking more than I've ever looked before because I'm looking at doing, reaction videos and stuff like this, and the redundancy of some of the stuff. But the way people convey their message or use anecdotal stuff or get their point across, it's never going to vibe with everyone. That's absolutely true. So whether I find what Tony Robbins says here, like, yeah, I agree with that, it doesn't mean that it would work for everyone. I absolutely agree with that. One of the things about counseling, coaching, one thing that I learned a lot in hypnotherapy training is rapport, but everyone has a different model of the world, okay? And the funny thing is, Tony Robbins' background's NLP, neuro-linguistic program. He doesn't talk about it a whole lot, but that's his background. That's why he communicates with stories, anecdotes. He's not this is something he's been trained to communicate like this. He's a great speaker, right? So his examples are these extreme cases. I got soap thrown down I got thrown into the wall. I was 5'1" when I was in high school. I mean, he's actually like 6'7" now, right? So it's like extreme examples. This is how he communicates. And then he's talking about, I went to this inner city place. It was African Americans. He's painting a picture of what happened. I gave him this story and they all cried. It's like, if you were there, would you say that the same thing happened? It's extreme messaging, okay? And I agree with you. Some people would go, hell yeah. Some other people would go, hell no. Right? Because their model of the world won't line up with the way Tony Robbins is talking. Tony Robbins is going, this is what worked for me. This is what works a lot for my clients. Whether that's true or not, we'll never know because there's no way to record what worked and what doesn't work. But you're right. For some people, they're not going to like the way this message is. They're going to say what you just said, this opinion that between a culture of deflection and narcissistic abuse. Right. You're saying I could decipher between those. Someone else would go, I don't know what you mean, Clutch. I love what he's saying. So this is what happens. I go online, I see other breakup coaches, I see the advice, and sometimes I just don't like someone's voice. Sometimes, but their examples or, the millionth time I hear someone in the coaching space say, you need a purpose, you need a mission. It's like, okay, thanks, or you need to exercise, right? So I agree with you in the sense that no piece of information that's opinion-based, and this is an opinion. He's not throwing facts out here, but he's giving you a point of view to look at and go, hey, don't live in the past, live in the future. But here's what Clutch would say. Well, you didn't live my life, right? And that's when you get on TV or you get on YouTube, a lot of generalizations. And that's why one of the things I'll always preach is get tailored help, okay? Coach or therapist, one-on-one, talk about your issues specifically, because a part of what's going on is the way you're interpreting the events is much different than someone else. And someone that's really good at coaching, therapy, they're going to understand They're going to go out of their way to understand where you're coming from instead of just saying, hey, you're doing it wrong. You got to do it this way. Right? Not every mess of ours needs to be projected on others. Okay, Eve. The thing with our industry, and I'm guilty of falling in for this as well, is that it tends to encourage blanket solutions. Exactly my point. I didn't read that. In breakups, the issues comes to the surface. We label it dad, mom. Exactly, Clutch. We're on the same fucking page, bro. So the longer I do this, yeah, oh, she's got daddy issues. It's a generalization. Like, what happened with her family? Like, if you look at it too, let's get a little deeper on this. And thanks for your comments, Clutch. You always add a little spice to the scene. Let me give you some examples, and this is the thing. Whenever someone goes anecdotal, a lot of times it's their anecdote, right? It's their life. They go, oh, let me give you a story. It's actually their story. It's a story they've heard before, or they've been a part of, or they know. So when I'm pulling this out, right? Let's give an example. Someone said, oh, she's just got daddy issues. She's needy. She's clingy, right? Oh, she's this. Oh, that's how she is in a relationship. She had issues with her dad. Da-da. Now let's get a little deeper. What was her relationship with her dad? Now, if someone says, actually, when she was 14, her dad passed away, does that change your compassion and understanding for the situation and say, oh, this girl just has daddy issues? Ha, ha, ha. Oh, yeah, she's got to get over that. Oh, she's just, it's like, now you understand something that's really deep, that's true. That's something that scares you in your own life, losing a parent, right? So when they get into this, oh, just dad issues, what were the issues? What were the roots of it? That's something you can dig through in therapy and get a little deeper and see what it really means to you. It's a tough thing for someone who wasn't loved correctly. The inner voice that's molded is childhood, is hard to change, especially when the supporting voice is abusive or negative. Right. It's tough for some people, and other people are like, I just get through it. Right? Like Tony Robbins is like, I was able to train myself out of it. I believe him. Right? And someone else goes, well, it's just not that easy. Right? It's just not that easy. All right, let's get back to it.
Out. Guess what? Their lives were far from perfect. Some of them had worse lives than I had. But when you have no reference and all you do is go online, you talk to other people, making everybody else toxic, and I'm like this, and they didn't do that, then you get to have this shitty life just like those other people. Why are they online so much? Because they don't have a life. Right? Don't be one of those. Free yourself from the chains of your past. I'm not saying your past doesn't matter, but listen, my mother, I tell people this all the time, and it's the truth. If my mother had been the mother I wanted her to be, the mother she should have been, I would not be the man I'm proud to be today. Because I had to become a practical psychologist way before any schooling, figure out when's she gonna go in a mood, how do I change her state, how do I protect her from the kids, it felt life and death, and it was to some extent. So I developed skills at such a young age. Then when I learned things, I just added to my skills, but I had a core sense of certainty that I could turn anybody around because it started with my mother. And thank God for her. And she encouraged me.
I'm just smiling here, not because of what happened with his mother, because I've seen so many interviews of Tony, and he'll say, I don't like talking about this. I don't like talking about my mom or what happened, but my mom passed away. I never used to talk about this. And I've heard the soap story. I've heard I was abused when I was young. And, it's getting his point across, right? It's getting his point across. But it's funny when some of these people that are famous or well-known, like Tony Robbins, and you see one interview, and then you see another one, it shows you that people don't have that big a grab bag of stuff, right? I've obviously repeated myself on certain stories with some of the people in the live stream might notice some things, right? But it's just funny because I'm kind of smiling because I'm like, yeah, I heard this one before. I've heard this one before. I don't like talking about what happened with me when I was young, but actually, because what he's doing is he's putting himself in a place where I'm not above you guys. I actually had problems too, but I overcame them. And then he's giving you the extreme cases. I've heard he's probably done like 100 videos or interviews where he talks about getting soap thrown around his mouth, right? Truth of Life says, I do agree with the idea that people tend to be triggered the most over minor inconveniences tend to be people that have no other purpose in life. Sure, where you're at in your life is going to... Well, look at it this way. Good point, Clutch. I've talked about this in breakup situations or relationship issues. So one of the things that happens in long-term relationships, and anyone that's lived with a partner, which is totally different than just being boyfriend, girlfriend, totally different echelon of a relationship, right? You live with someone, the relationship's different, not necessarily better in all departments, right? But part of it is, right? I come home from work, I had a bad day, someone pissed me off, there was traffic, someone cut me off, someone spit in the car, whatever. I bring that into the house, and then you're in a good mood, and you're like, hey, what's up? And you're like, you can't just turn off what happened outside. And then that person, oh, are you upset with me? Or what's your problem? I had a client recently that they lived in LA, and he's like, yeah, she came home, she's just in a bad mood, and I don't understand. Like, I asked her, like, what's your problem? And then she came in, told me to take out the trash and clean up the kitchen, and she was just acting bitchy and all. I said, well, where did she come from? Well, she came from work. I'm like, all right. And she's like, she shouldn't act like this. I'm tired of it. I'm like, was she in traffic? Because they're in LA. Oh, yeah, it's LA, man. I'm like, how long? It's like an hour and a half of traffic. So she's an hour and a half of traffic. Is she having any issues at work? He goes, yeah, she just started a new job. She doesn't really like working there. Okay, so you don't process this way when you deal with people. I do now. Like, okay, doing a good job as a coach, hypnotherapist, helping people out, is just figuring out how to understand where they're coming from. Perspective versus perception, right? Like I just said about the daddy issue thing. Someone throws out the blanket call. Oh, she's got daddy issues. She's so clingy. She's so weak. She's so this or whatever. It's like, how did she get there, dude? What actually happened? Oh, her dad passed away in her teen years. Don't you feel different about that person now? Don't you feel a little bit more compassionate, empathetic, or understanding rather than, oh, she's got daddy issues? It's almost funny to people, right? It's the same thing with the guy that has a problem with his girlfriend that lives with him, and she comes home in a bad mood and she's a little bit bitchy. Where's this coming from? Rather than, why are you acting like this? What's your problem? It's like, just give her some space and realize she's in a bad mood. She just sat in traffic. She's going to let a little steam off. Just leave her alone for a little while. I remember, and I talked to the guy about it, and he's like, yeah, that makes sense. I didn't understand that. Yeah, because you're just looking at it from your standpoint. You're sitting on the couch watching TV. You're in a relaxed state. You're feeling good. You had a good day, so why don't you? Happens all the time, folks. Let's finish up this video if possible.
She did so many great things. And she loved me, even though it didn't look like it at times. So,
right.
But if your parents, if the people around you said all the things you thought they should have, if they had just not been toxic, if they'd encouraged you, you wouldn't have any muscle. And right now you don't have any muscle because you're using that as an excuse, if you're thinking that. And I'm not attacking you, brothers and sisters. I'm calling to you because I know you're more. Otherwise, I'd just keep my mouth shut. You've been hypnotized by a culture of weakness. Now, having said that, I'll say one last thing. I know you haven't got other questions, but it's so important what you asked. Yes, there are people that you don't want to hang out with that will not serve you. But then move on. Don't sit there and talk about it constantly. Don't waste your time. And you say, but what if it's family, Tony? Mine was family too. Then you learn to grow. You go, they're in my life. If someone can get your goat, if someone can piss you off, if someone can make you feel less than, that's God coming to you saying, grow. You need some spiritual growth. There's got to be some change in your perception, your belief, your emotions, your spiritual look of life. So that can't happen anymore. And when it happens, like at 61, I've been through so many of those things. And I like to do things in mass. I took on big challenges, so I'd have to grow more. But then life throws them at you too. When they come, you just go, okay, it's going to have me until I grow. What needs a shift in me so that it no longer has an impact? But you know, Jim Rohn used to say, my original teacher, he used to say, Tony, what happens if I've got a cup of coffee here? And he'd say, what if your worst enemy drops sugar in your coffee? What's going to happen? And I go, well, you'd have sweet coffee. And he goes, what if your best friend, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your loved one drops one drop of strychnine? I said, you'd be dead. He goes, that's right. Life is both sugar and strychnine, so watch your coffee. His whole thing was stand guard at the door of your brain. But some people take that and go, oh my God, you can kill me. It was a metaphor. These people are not so toxic. They're toxic because you give them energy. So if your mom's crazy and constantly criticizing you and it drives you nuts, Just go, that's my mom. That's her way of showing love. And I find a new perspective. And no matter what she does, just stay in a beautiful state and love on her and think, boy, think of all that she cares and feels for, all that she's frustrated in life, or all that she's going through that's made her this way. And think, I don't have to go through this. I can love her. It's like your growth is the only limit to your happiness. If you're not happy, you're not growing in some area. And usually it's a place where you're blaming, you're pointing the finger. I don't care if it's government, don't get me wrong. People can be unfair, unjust, that's for sure happens. But you can't control that. You can't make it not happen. What you have to do is become stronger than any of it so you're free. Freedom comes from growth. Freedom does not come from control. Because control is an illusion. You can't control everybody. No matter how hard you try, you can't control what they think or feel. And not everybody's going to be fair and just. And you, my dear friends, and I have not always been fair and just. Whether we admit it or not, it's just the nature of being a human being. Mm-hmm. But we can make the largest pattern fair and just and loving and powerful and serving and growing.
Intense, right? So, grow. That's the message. Interesting enough when he's like, oh, you know, you can't control situations. And I've heard him in infomercials recently. Oh, aren't you guys just scared of the inflation? He's selling some product or something like that. And he starts out with a fear situation with a plan in place that you can buy something from him. So Tony Robbins, I got time for him. Hearing him a lot, and I've read a couple of the books or book notes on him and stuff like that. He's got good messages. I know where he's coming from. One thing that I would definitely say is whoever you have a problem with, whoever you had a problem with, definitely looking at how they came up and where they were coming from when they were doing bad things is a interesting way to look at it. Also, like, I've come to that realization myself with I had issues with my dad for years. My dad was bad alcoholic, really an asshole when I was young, no patience, a lot of different things. And now I look at it like, well, dad worked 60 hours a week, drove a truck, did a job he didn't really like, sat in traffic in the Bay Area all the time. There was a reason why he was in a bad mood. So I've come to terms with that. I'm understanding of it. Of course, he's different now, so that helps. But understanding where someone comes from is a big part of it. Truth Love said, what I say is that the subconscious will purposely seek out that which triggers it most until you address it. Logic alone can't tackle it. It takes awareness of what your emotions are doing. Okay, that's a good way to put it. Interesting that you sent that. I just had a client say that they're reading The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson, which is a great kind of self-help book. And a client of mine years back, because that book's kind of old now. I guess it's 5-6 years old, I'd say. He made like a little worksheet, and the first question was, the more something threatens your identity, the more you will avoid it. That kind of lines up with what you're saying, huh, Clutch? I'll put that down here. So the more something threatens your identity, the more you will avoid it. What are 2 things you are trying to avoid and why? Maybe put that in the chat if you like. But that's a really good thing to gauge where you're at sometimes. The more something threatens you, and I've actually answered that question in different times in my life, to really get in touch with what am I avoiding, right? The more something threatens your identity, the more you will avoid it. So what are you avoiding right now? It's a good question, right? Very good question. Where are we at? We're at an hour already. Plan to do some stories. I'm not sure if I have enough time. Maybe I'll do that in a separate video here. But this has been good. Think about it for a moment. I got one more video. I didn't watch it. It's only 5 minutes. Russell Brand, who I have kind of mixed emotions about. He was a comedian. He's got a couple funny movies. He gets very esoteric in his points of view. I haven't watched this on having toxic family members, but maybe we'll watch this together really quick. We got 4 on deck. I appreciate it. Like I said, ponder the question. The more something threatens your identity, the more you will avoid it. What are 2 things you're trying to avoid and why? Good question to ask. So the other points would be, in my experience, the more uncomfortable the answer, the more likely it is to be true. All right, let's take a look at this really quick. We'll take down old Tony Robbins, whose real name is actually quite different. Look it up on Wikipedia. It's kind of funny when you realize that. Let's get into this. Russell Brand on having toxic family members. I'm curious about this one. Haven't seen it. Something nice to watch with you all. Send your story into writemac.com if you want to get my take. If you don't, that's just fine. All right, let's punch the play button on.
I've requested that I talk about toxicity within the family unit. There are many people, aren't there, like intellectuals, post-structuralists, feminists, that believe that the nuclear family itself is a kind of construction that limits individual freedom and stymies creativity. I was thinking about my choice to be a person in a family. I mean, not my family of origin, where, of course, like all of us, I was just sputtered out in a series of orgasms and gestations into this beautiful little world. I'm thinking more about the family that I choose to be a part of now, the one where I'm a father, my wife is a mother, my daughters are children. I think it's curious. I wonder how much autonomy I really had in this decision, and how much I was simply obeying the dictates of the culture I was born into. People have always bred, of course. People have always been parents, of course. But dear Wendy Mandy, under the skin guest and shaman, said that we are designed to live tribally, that we are, like, you know, don't you, from anthropology, that there are tribes where the word father is applied to all the males of the tribe and the word mother all the females of the tribe, and that some kids don't really pay particular attention to which one is their actual father. And haven't you, through your life, selected other mothers and other sisters and other brothers, other siblings and cousins, your true tribe, the tribe that you have found? I suppose what you're asking, those of you that when you're talking about toxicity within the family, is the idea that you don't get on and feel trapped by your circumstance, and somehow your family become emblems of that feeling of being trapped. I mean, there are myriad possibilities of, you know, there's lots of ways that relationships can go wrong. Rejection of the mother, what do I imagine that means, or what that must feel like? It must be painful to feel dislocated from the father, or that the father is absent. Very, very painful, I imagine. But my deepest belief system, the one that I have access to that's most deep currently, is that all relationships are a manifestation of some latent or potentially inherent aspect of yourself. Not to say there isn't such a thing as a bad father or a difficult mother or a wayward cousin or a dickwad auntie. More that, what is it that is provoked in you through relationship? This I believe to be both true, but practicably true, meaning that if you treat it as true, that what bothers you about another person is that something within you is being affected by them, you have the ability to control and alter it. If I just see myself as the sort of hapless victim of other people's whims and wills, then what am I going to do about the world? What am I going to do about my life? When am
I think the difficult part when it comes to family is you didn't choose to be in that situation. So Russell Brand just goes off very esoteric, goes in a lot of different directions. I do agree we are designed to live tribally. And it's really interesting because if you've grown up in a neighborhood, let's just say you grew up in a suburb neighborhood where people had, you know, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, something like that, or and everyone's in their little place. There's neighborhoods where it's very tribal, where people have cookouts, where they are neighborly, they hang out with each other. And I've had friends that live in pretty good neighborhoods say, like, God, the neighbors and us, we just don't even talk. I think that's been more and more the case over the last 10, 20 years with the internet, where growing up, you know, maybe have some interactions with your neighbors and maybe become kind of family-like. That's lacking for a lot of people. And a lot of these problems that I see with breakups, it's so much deeper than just the breakup, right? Like, breakups hurt, interactions like that hurt, it's taken personal, it's triggered. But when you get down to it, if someone's not got a lot more around them support-wise, or they're kind of touched off from their family, they've gotten distant with their friends, they can feel like they're on an island post-breakup because they've been leaning on that person so much for a big part of their love, and that highly affects the situation. But getting back to Russell Brand, I'm kind of just going to stop it because he's just it's getting way too esoteric here. But your individual situation and your point of view, you know, if you go back and you go, oh, when I was a kid, this, and this happened to me. And I was going to disregard it. I'll give you an example, and the client of mine wouldn't mind me mentioning this because he's an open book. He was adopted, and he's got some issues with that. He was adopted at like 2 or 3 years old, I think, really young. We've done some hypnotherapy work with it that's helped out quite a bit with abandonment. And his adopted father was rich, like pretty wealthy, grew up on a golf course kind of a thing. But his adopted dad was a jerk. He doesn't even call him by his dad. He calls him by his first name. He calls his dad his first name. Doesn't call him dad. And he just said he was just verbally abusive to him all the time, put him down, and would put him down in front of friends. And it was just, he was never enough for his dad. His dad would just treat him really low. And they worked at the dad had a mechanic shop that he worked at, and the kid worked there when he was teen years. And at this mechanic shop, the dad would just publicly or in the group put him down, make fun of him. And there was one mechanic that worked there that would always back him up. That would always, you know, be like, why are you talking to him like this? What's your problem, right? Now, here's the thing. Talking to him, right? I said, there must be a lot of people that say, well, you were adopted, but at least you were adopted by a rich family. And he goes, fuck, everyone says that to me. Like, why am I complaining? Like, at least you're adopted by a rich family. But he goes, they don't understand what I went through with the way he talked to me, the way my stepmom did things. And you know what? I'll never completely understand not being in his shoes in those moments at that age, being put on the spot, being embarrassed in front of a group. I'll never know. And this is what happens is when you talk to friends and family and they're not therapists or coach, or they're not experienced, or they're just not good at this kind of stuff. They're not empathetic. There's a lot of people out there, they're just not built in to be empathetic or compassionate. Doesn't mean they're bad people. Just means that they haven't had enough bad shit happen to relate to, or they're on the opposite end and they're just like, get over it. I got over it. But that's the whole point of therapy or coaching, is like, get someone that's not necessarily just going to pat you on the back or give you pity, but really listen to you and what happened so they can understand where you're coming from. You'll never understand 100%. And so when someone goes, oh, let me give my take on toxic families. It's like Tony Robbins goes on this big spiel about how bad he had it. But if someone else stepped up to the podium and goes, look, Tony, I got you beat. And Tony goes, oh, well, just get over it because, you know, it was similar what happened to me. No, it's not similar. I had it worse, dude. I was eating out of a cat bowl. I was, you know. So when you start getting anecdotal, someone else will go, right? Tit for tat. And that's why everyone operates a little different with their stuff, man. And so you really got to listen, because someone could say for years, ignorantly, and ignorance means I don't know what I don't know. Doesn't mean you're stupid. For years, I just figured most people had good moms. My mom's not perfect, but I have a pretty good mom. So if someone would tell me, oh, I don't speak to my mom, I'd think, hey, man, you need to work that out. That's not good. You need to forgive your mom. Now I look back and I'm like, I have no idea what that person went through with their mom that would make them feel that way. Now, if they start divulging some stories about things that their mom did to make them feel that way, all of a sudden you take a different point of view and you're like, shit, man, that's rough. Maybe it's better you don't talk to her because it's affecting your life. Exactly, Rob. There's always a backstory, and it gets lost in this funnel of general advice. I'm having a lot of trouble when I go through these videos to do reactions because I'm like, general advice, general advice. Have I given general advice on some of my videos? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I really like giving advice on individual stories, because it's specific. Someone else might be go, wow, you're complaining about that? That's stupid. That's why you need to get advice on it, because the specific things that you're holding on to are unique to your situation. Right? So you get someone famous like Russell Brand or Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is just going to give you his story. He's sitting there going, well, your story counts. Your story counts. This is what happened to me. This is what happened to me. This is what happened to me. When I was a kid, I don't talk about this a lot. It's so funny when he says that because I've heard the story in other interviews. Soap was thrown down my neck. I was abused. I was hit. Mom was on pills. I believe him. Why would he lie, right? It's not fabricated or anything. But he's saying, get over your story. But let me share my story so you can get some compassion and feel like I'm in the same boat. But there's plenty of people out there that would hear that story and go, what? Number one, you're rich now, so it doesn't matter. Or number two, my story's worse. Or number three, someone might go, I don't believe you, dude. You got soap thrown down your, like you're exaggerating. Everyone perceives things differently. It's amazing. When I used to teach public speaking, right? About 35 to 42 students in a class, okay? Every term, right? And I'd teach 2 of these courses a term. So you're looking at 70 to 80 students, right? And this is like public speaking 101. But there'd be 4 to 5 speeches in front of the class per term, per semester, okay? So you're just hearing a lot. And a lot of the speeches aren't very good. People aren't into them. But the interesting part about it, someone would give a speech that was powerful to me. There was times when I almost teared up, and I'm not a person that tears up very easily. And I would think, wow, that was deep. It would be about their brother almost committing suicide, and there'd be someone laughing in the back. And you're like, what? Why don't they feel what I feel? Or someone playing on their phone. Why aren't they listening? This is a compelling speech. Everyone sees the world differently and takes in things differently. It's not their fault. Someone else in the back's like, oh, this person's just being dramatic. It's like, really? They're talking about their brother maybe committing, you know what I mean? It's like, and then you think, wow, this person's an idiot. They're just ignorant. They don't know what they don't know. They don't know, right? Doesn't mean you have to like that they don't know what they don't know, but it just helps you understand better and not take things so personally. Now that person in the back, like if I was teaching that class, it wouldn't bother me. Before I'm like, what are you laughing about? Why would you laugh? Why would you think this is funny? Oh, they're being dramatic. It's like, the story they just told didn't seem, I mean, there's drama in it, but it was a real story. If that person's acting, they did a hell of a job. People react differently to different things. People get triggered by different things, right? People get sentimental about different things. Like the great Rob I.S. says, there's always a backstory. All right, got on a little bit of a tangent today. Send your story into writemac.com. You go on a book a live coaching session. It's available also there. I'll be back on deck tomorrow with Clutch. Thanks for throwing a little spice into the bowl today. Eve, always good to hear from you. I hope you're doing really well. Who else do we have? Petty Betty. It's been a pleasure. Sabina as well. Roller Girl. Stay you. Laffy Quince. Thank you. I'll see you all tomorrow.